with Caitlin, you know she's a hard worker because of what she's been able to accomplish. But until you see that there's no wasted, movements, no wasted reps, no wasted anything, you just have such a level of respect for how she goes about her work every day. And understanding the spotlight that she's on, understanding the weight that she carries because of who she is. And I've said this before, like she's literally like Taylor Swift 2.0.
The moment Stephanie White sat down for her new interview, fans expected insight, leadership, maybe even calm analysis, but what they got instead was a thunderbolt. She didn't smile politely. She didn't ease into the conversation. She leaned forward, eyes sharp, posture unshakable, and spoke with a level of honesty the WNBA rarely allows when it comes to Caitlin Clark. "I'm going to be real," she began, and the entire room froze. Cameras tightened their focus. Producers shot each other glances, and fans watching the live stream felt their hearts pound as Stephanie unleashed the kind of truth that makes headlines detonate. She spoke about pressure, expectations, leadership, accountability, all the things critics whisper about but never dare say publicly. But the shock wasn't that Stephanie talked about Caitlin. The shock was how she did it, fearless, firm, and layered with a respect so intense it felt like an earthquake rumbling beneath the surface. Stephanie didn't attack Caitlin, she challenged her. She didn't baby her, she uplifted her. She didn't avoid the controversies, she walked straight into them like someone unafraid of the backlash waiting outside. "If Caitlin wants to dominate this league the way she dominated college," she said, "then she has to embrace every part of the responsibility that comes with it." Fans exploded. Some called Stephanie brutally honest. Others called her inspiring. But everyone agreed on one thing. This was the interview that proved Caitlin Clark wasn't just changing the game. She was changing the standards. And Stephanie White. She wasn't holding back anymore. Long before Stephanie White delivered that electrifying interview.
With what you guys experienced as young players, how important was it to forge that relationship with her for all the reasons?
I mean, really important. I'd had just a little bit of a relationship with Caitlin from calling her games a number of times, when she was in college. But it was very important. Look, she's obviously the centerpiece of everything that we do. And most importantly for me was just connecting and building trust. I don't know how she does what she does and handles it so gracefully. I'm not sure, myself as a 23
interview. A quiet storm had been building between her and Caitlin Clark, one made not of conflict, but of pressure, expectation, and the impossible weight that comes with becoming the face of a league overnight. Stephanie had been watching Caitlin long before the WNBA spotlight swallowed her whole. She saw the college phenomenon, the transcendent talent, the generational shooter whose every game felt like a national event. But Stephanie also saw the other side, the exhaustion behind Caitlin's eyes, the loneliness that comes with greatness, the emotional bruises hidden beneath applause and criticism. She had lived that life herself once, on a smaller scale, in a different era, but the wounds were familiar. And that understanding created a deep, invisible connection between them long before their paths officially crossed. Caitlin, meanwhile, admired Stephanie for reasons she rarely admitted out loud. She respected Stephanie's basketball mind, her fierce coaching identity, her championship pedigree, and the unapologetic honesty that made her one of the league's most trusted voices. Stephanie wasn't just a coach, she was a truth teller in a league full of rehearsed answers and political statements. Whenever she spoke, players listened, fans listened, executives listened, and Caitlin listened most of all. But admiration alone couldn't protect her once she entered the WNBA storm. Because while the world celebrated her talent, they also scrutinized her with a microscope powerful enough to tear anyone apart. Every mistake became a headline. Every foul became a debate. Every expression became a narrative. And Caitlin never got a moment to breathe as the pressure grew. Stephanie could sense Caitlin slipping deeper into the emotional quicksand of fame, trying to balance expectations, navigating locker room politics, facing jealousy, carrying a fan base bigger than some pro teams, and enduring nonstop comparisons that would suffocate anyone else. Stephanie had hoped Caitlin's team would shield her. She hoped veterans would mentor her. She hoped the league would stabilize around her instead of exploiting her. But instead, she watched Caitlin become the epicenter
and still perform at the elite level that she's able to perform, with and at. So building trust, getting to know her, I'm a firm believer that you have to coach and challenge your best players. And for me to be able to do that, I needed to earn her trust. And I need to be honest. Like, I'm a very honest, transparent coach. You're gonna know, what I'm thinking or where I'm coming from. And if you don't, and you certainly want to
the epicenter of every controversy, every argument, every talking point. And the worst part, most of it wasn't Caitlin's fault. It was the system reacting to someone it didn't know how to handle. Yet Caitlin wasn't blameless either. Stephanie saw moments where she was overly emotional. Moments where frustration got the best of her. Moments where youthful stubbornness overshadowed leadership. But she didn't judge it. She recognized it. It reminded her of herself at 22, fiery, ambitious, overwhelmed, desperate to succeed, terrified of failing, and still learning how to carry the weight of being great. Stephanie never wanted to tear Caitlin down. She wanted to guide her. She wanted to challenge her. She wanted to push her into becoming the version of herself strong enough to survive what was coming. Their unofficial relationship deepened behind the scenes. Private conversations during warm-ups. Quiet check-ins after tough games. Unspoken respect exchanged in passing. Stephanie became something Caitlin lacked. A mentor who wasn't trying to control her, mold her, or manipulate her. But that connection came with risk. Executives didn't like seeing Caitlin form bonds outside their influence. Media didn't like losing their ability to weaponize narratives. And other coaches didn't like Stephanie's growing gravitational pull toward the league's most valuable player. Tension built quietly, subtly, dangerously. Then came the road trip in early summer, a trip that changed everything. After a brutal loss that triggered intense online backlash, Caitlin sat alone in the tunnel, fighting tears, unaware that Stephanie was walking by. Without announcement, Stephanie sat beside her, not as a coach, not as a commentator, not as a WNBA authority figure, but as someone who had been where Caitlin was sitting. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She didn't try to fix the moment. She said only one thing: you can't run from this pressure. You have to grow inside it. Those words embedded themselves into Caitlin's chest like a seed waiting for light. But the world outside didn't see moments like that. They only saw the headlines, the drama, the noise. And Stephanie watched helplessly as Caitlin was blamed for everything: league instability, teammate, frustration, fan division, even controversies she never caused. The WNBA had turned Caitlin into a lightning rod, and the public had turned her.
And I think that I certainly appreciate that about her. And I'm also the same kind of psycho that she is in terms of like competitiveness. Now it comes out in different ways, but we both just really want to win, and we want to set ourselves and our teammates up for success. And so it was really important for me, right away with her, with AB and with Kelsey, honestly. I mean, they're the core.
Turned her into a battlefield. Meanwhile, Caitlin felt herself sinking deeper into self-doubt, questioning her leadership, questioning her decisions, questioning whether she even belonged in this league that seemed determined to break her spirit. That was the emotional truth Stephanie carried into the interview. She wasn't speaking as a critic. She wasn't speaking as a rival coach. She wasn't speaking as a league mouthpiece. She was speaking as someone who had watched Caitlin battle demons no rookie should be forced to fight. She was speaking as someone who cared deeply about the long-term future of women's basketball. She was speaking as someone who wanted Caitlin to evolve, not because she was failing, but because she was destined for greatness too heavy for her current shoulders. And Stephanie understood something Caitlin didn't yet grasp: extraordinary players don't crumble under pressure, they transform because of it. Still, Stephanie also knew the price of honesty. She knew that being blunt about Caitlin would provoke backlash, ignite controversy, and create even more pressure for a girl already suffocating under expectations. But she also knew Caitlin needed someone brave enough to speak the truth publicly, not to attack her, but to elevate her. To remind her she wasn't just here to play basketball. She was here to redefine it, and that's why Stephanie didn't hold back. Not out of criticism, not out of envy, but out of belief. But what Caitlin didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that Stephanie's interview wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't just honesty, it was a warning. A warning connected to something unfolding behind the scenes. Something Caitlin wasn't prepared for. Something that involved the league, the media, and a decision that would force her into the biggest crossroads of her career. And the first shocking twist was moments away, the instant Stephanie White's interview hit the airwaves. The WNBA wasn't just shaken, it was thrown into a full-scale identity crisis. Executives scrambled behind closed doors. Players' group chatted in panic. Reporters circled like vultures. And Caitlin Clark, caught completely off guard, felt the pressure of 1,000 cameras shift violently onto her shoulders. This wasn't praise. This wasn't criticism. This was Stephanie White, one of the most respected minds in women's basketball, publicly calling her to a higher standard, doing it with a boldness that made the league hold its breath. Caitlin sat frozen in her apartment, watching the clip replay over and over, not knowing whether to feel inspired, exposed, or betrayed. Stephanie's tone wasn't cruel, but it was unfiltered, the exact kind of honesty the public had been starving for. Yet to Caitlin, it felt like a spotlight aimed directly at her insecurities, illuminating weaknesses she'd worked hard to hide. Social media detonated instantly. Some fans celebrated Stephanie's transparency, calling it mentorship. Others condemned her for adding pressure onto a rookie already drowning in it. Influencers dissected every sentence. Analysts debated whether Stephanie was guiding Caitlin or scolding her. Even former players weighed in, some praising the tough love, others warning that this kind of critique could break a young star emotionally. But it wasn't the noise outside that rattled Caitlin the most. It was the silence from inside her team. No messages from leadership. No reassurance from veterans. No protective statements from the organization. Instead, she overheard whispers in practice that stung more than any headline. Maybe Stephanie's right. She does act frustrated all the time, and she's not ready to lead, and pressure's getting to her. The comments weren't meant to be cruel, but they landed like daggers. What the world didn't know is this: Stephanie hadn't given that interview casually. She hadn't just spoken from emotion. She had spoken from knowledge Caitlin wasn't aware of. Knowledge that came from meetings Caitlin wasn't invited to. Knowledge of a growing fracture inside the league that would soon engulf every player connected to Caitlin. Days before the interview, Stephanie had been pulled into a confidential WNBA leadership briefing, one that left her furious and shaken. The league, pressured by sponsors and media partners, was discussing a new player dynamics initiative that focused almost entirely on Caitlin Clark. They discussed her temperament, her relationships, her influence, her marketability, and worst of all, her failure to meet internal leadership benchmarks. Caitlin had no idea these benchmarks existed, because they technically didn't. The league was inventing them. Stephanie listened in disbelief as officials discussed strategies that weren't about helping Caitlin succeed. They were about controlling her narrative, managing her emotions, and ensuring she didn't overshadow the league itself. One executive said, "If Caitlin can't adjust emotionally, we need to start preparing alternative faces of the league." Another added, "She's valuable, but emotional unpredictability could threaten long-term branding stability." Stephanie clenched her jaw. Emotional unpredictability. Branding stability. They weren't talking about a player, they were talking about a product. A product they feared they were losing control over. What made Khamenei's blood boil wasn't just the content of the meeting, it was the tone, the coldness, the detachment. The eagerness to treat Caitlin like a tool rather than a young woman navigating unprecedented pressure. Stephanie felt something shift inside her that day. She realized the league wasn't protecting Caitlin. They were preparing to use her. And worse, they were planning what would happen if she didn't comply. A document titled Influence Mitigation Plan Phase 1 detailed steps to gradually shift attention to other players if Caitlin became too emotionally volatile. Steps like reducing highlight packages, elevating rivals and media features, and manipulating narrative arcs around star matchups. It was a blueprint for soft character assassination. Stephanie walked out of that meeting sick to her stomach. She wanted to warn Caitlin, but she knew anything she said privately could be twisted. She needed to send a message in a way the league couldn't censor. A message that would reach Caitlin directly. A message wrapped in mentorship, but carrying a deeper, hidden warning. They're watching you. Her interview wasn't an attack, it was a shield. A coded alert disguised as tough love. She hoped Caitlin would understand the subtext. Be strong. Grow now. Or they will bury you later. But Caitlin didn't see the warning. Not yet. She only felt the emotional blow. And when she finally confronted her agent about the pressure spiraling around her, he took a deep breath and revealed the truth Stephanie could only hint at. There's a narrative being developed behind the scenes. Not officially. Not publicly. But it's there. They're questioning whether you're emotionally ready to be the cornerstone of the league. Caitlin stared at him in disbelief. But I've done everything they asked. He nodded, pained. That's the problem. They want more than performance. They want control. As Caitlin struggled to process this, the first shocking twist struck with devastating force. A leaked document surfaced online, anonymous, grainy, impossible to trace. At first glance, it looked like internal league notes. But at second glance, it looked like a weapon pointed directly at Caitlin Clark. The headline on the document read, Athlete Personality Assessment. Caitlin Clark. Emotional Risk Factors. Beneath. It were bullet points evaluating her. Reactivity, defensive responses, media, fragility, and leadership inconsistencies. It was a character. Evaluation disguised as psychology, and it painted her as unstable. Caitlin's heart dropped as she read it. Her hands shook. Her breath quickened. The league moved fast, issuing a statement claiming the document was fake. But the damage was already done. Fans argued. Media debated. Critics celebrated. Supporters panicked. And Caitlin. She broke inside. They're calling me weak, she whispered. They're saying I'm not mentally strong enough to be here. Her agent grabbed her shoulders gently. Listen to me, that's not what this means. This leak was deliberate. Someone wants to discredit you. But the twist cut deeper because at the bottom of the leaked page was a signature. A signature Caitlin recognized instantly. A signature she trusted. Stephanie White. Caitlin felt the world collapse. Had Stephanie evaluated her? Judged her? Warned the league about her? Used the interview to soften the blow of backlash she knew was coming? Her chest tightened painfully. Tears filled her eyes. I thought she believed in me. Her agent stared, horrified. Caitlin, that signature. I need you to listen, it might not be real, but Caitlin didn't hear the last part. She was already grabbing her keys, already shaking, already breaking because someone was framing her. Mentor, or worse, her mentor had been part of the plan all along. She needed answers, and the truth waiting for her would shatter everything she believed about the woman she trusted most. Caitlin drove through the city with her heartbeat pounding louder than the engine, every streetlight smearing into a blur of fear, betrayal, and desperate hope. She didn't know what hurt worse, the possibility that Stephanie White had secretly evaluated her for the league, or the possibility that someone forged that signature to turn her against the one mentor she trusted. She replayed Stephanie's interview in her head, searching for hidden clues. Subtext she hadn't understood. Warnings she'd missed. But all she heard now was the criticism, the firmness, the authority in Stephanie's tone. The words that once felt empowering now pressed against her ribs like weights threatening to crush her. She gripped the steering wheel harder, forcing back a sob she didn't have time for. She needed clarity. She needed truth. She needed to know whether the one voice she respected most had been quietly sharpening a knife behind her back. When she reached the practice facility where Stephanie had agreed to meet, every instinct screamed that something was off. The parking lot was too empty, too quiet. Only one light burned inside the building, a single hallway fixture flickering like it was struggling to stay alive. Caitlin swallowed hard and stepped inside, feeling the cold air wrap around her legs like a warning. Her footsteps echoed through the corridor, amplified by her racing heartbeat. She pushed through the door to the main film room, breath trembling, and saw Stephanie sitting alone at the table, no cameras. No assistants, no PR staff, just her head bowed, hands clasped tightly, a posture that looked less like authority and more like guilt. Caitlin's voice cracked as she spoke. "Tell me the truth. Did you write that assessment?" Stephanie lifted her eyes slowly, and the pain in them nearly broke Caitlin's heart. "No," she whispered. "I would never evaluate you behind closed doors, and I'd never call you unstable. That document is a lie." Caitlin felt her knees wobble, a storm of relief and confusion crashing into her at once. "Then why is your signature on it?" Stephanie closed her eyes and exhaled, steadying herself. "Because they forged it. And not just mine." She slid a folder across the table, thick, heavy, filled with printed pages. "They forged assessments for multiple coaches. Mine is just the one they leaked first." Caitlin's breath caught in her throat as she skimmed through the pages. Other names, other signatures, other fabricated evaluations targeting different players, but only hers had been leaked. "Why me?" she whispered. Stephanie's jaw tightened. "Because you're the only one big enough for the public to believe. And you're the only one powerful enough to scare them." Caitlin's pulse quickened. "Scare who?" Stephanie leaned closer, lowering her voice. "The Alliance." The word hung in the air like smoke. Caitlin blinked. Alliance. Stephanie nodded grimly. "A group of executives, media partners, and league strategists who want deeper control over the WNBA's public image. Project B was their creation, and you rejecting it threatened their entire blueprint." Caitlin staggered back. She had expected drama, maybe punishment, but not this. Not an organized network with forged documents, leaked evaluations, and a willingness to manipulate public perception. Stephanie continued, voice trembling with fury. "They think if they control the stars, they control the league's direction. They want predetermined narratives, manufactured rivalries, controlled emotions. They want players to behave exactly how they script them." Caitlin felt her stomach twist. "So they tried to script me." Stephanie nodded. "You're too big for them to contain. Your popularity outran their control. And instead of adapting, they built systems to weaken you." Caitlin paced, shaking, tears pooling at the corners of her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" Stephanie looked down. "Because I was being monitored. Every conversation, every message. I couldn't risk you being associated with me until I knew who was targeting us." Caitlin froze. "Us." Stephanie's eyes hardened. "Yes, Caitlin, us. Don't you get it? I wasn't just warning why, was protecting myself too." A tremor ran through Caitlin. "What do you mean, protecting yourself?" Stephanie hesitated, then slid one more paper across the table, her hand shaking slightly. "Because I'm not just someone they're using. I'm someone they're planning to replace. Just someone they're using. I'm someone they're planning to replace." Caitlin's heart hammered. The paper showed a list of future leadership alignments. And right beside Stephanie's name, coach replacement evaluation pending final decision. Caitlin's eyes widened. "They're trying to push you out." Stephanie nodded. "I refused to support Project B. I told them players shouldn't be handled like controlled assets. That made me a threat." She swallowed, voice cracking. "And threats get erased." Caitlin sat down slowly, mind spinning. She wanted to scream, to fight, to run. But before she could gather herself, Stephanie's expression shifted into something darker, something haunted. "There's one more thing you need to know," she whispered. "There's a phase 4 and it's already been activated." Caitlin felt her blood run cold. Phase 4. What is it? Stephanie's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's the phase where they destroy the trust between star players and the coaches supporting them. The forged document with my signature. That was phase 4. Caitlin's stomach dropped. They hadn't just tried to turn the league against her, they'd tried to turn her against Stephanie. "They wanted me to hate you," Caitlin whispered. Stephanie nodded. "Because if you trust no one, you become easier to control." Caitlin's chest tightened until she could barely breathe. "Who is behind this? Tell me who." Stephanie closed her eyes, bracing herself. "It's not one person. It's a coordinated group. But the person facilitating the forged documents..." She stopped. Her eyes filled with something Caitlin had never seen fear. "Caitlin, it's someone inside your own organization." The room fell silent as Caitlin's world cracked open. "Someone on my team?" she whispered. Stephanie didn't answer with words, only a slow, heartbreaking nod. "Someone who has access to internal files. Someone who approves media guidelines. Someone who talks to you every day." Caitlin's breath vanished. She felt the ground tilt. The betrayal wasn't distant. It wasn't abstract. It was close to close. Someone she trusted. Someone she confided in. Someone who handled her schedule, her media appearances, her image, her assistant coach, her media handler, her team GM, her PR director, her veteran teammate. Stephanie placed a trembling hand on Caitlin's arm. "You need to stay calm. They're watching your reaction." Caitlin shook her head. "Watching? What do you mean watching?" Stephanie swallowed hard. "Because the Alliance needs to know whether Phase 4 worked. Right then." A phone buzzed, not Caitlin's, not Stephanie's. A third phone placed deliberately under the table. Recording. Someone had set them up. Someone was listening. Caitlin's heart stopped. And before she could speak, before she could move, before she could even breathe, the voice from the hidden phone spoke through the speaker. "Caitlin." "Stephanie, step away from the table. Security is on the way. This conversation is unauthorized." Caitlin's blood turned to ice. They weren't just watching, they were coming for both of them. The moment that cold, disembodied voice crackled from the hidden phone, Caitlin felt every muscle in her body lock. The room's air turned thick, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in around her and Stephanie. For a split second, neither woman moved, frozen between fear and disbelief, until Stephanie's instincts kicked in. She grabbed Caitlin's wrist with urgent force and whispered, "Don't look scared. They're measuring our reactions." But Caitlin's heart was slamming so violently she could barely hear. Unauthorized conversation. Security on the way. Someone had planned this entire meeting, tracked it, monitored it, recorded it, tanned. Now they were moving to intercept, not to reprimand, but to silence. Footsteps echoed in the hallways, low, deliberate, heavy. Not one pair, multiple, approaching from both directions. Stephanie's grip tightened. "We need to leave now." She guided Caitlin toward the emergency exit near the back of the facility. But when Caitlin pushed against the door, it didn't budge. Sealed, remotely locked. Someone had disabled the exits. Panic rose in her chest like fire licking up her throat. "They're trapping us," she whispered. Stephanie pressed her back to the wall, scanning the room with the sharpened awareness of someone who'd been in political crossfires before. "They don't want us escaping with the truth. They want control over the narrative before this gets out." The footsteps grew closer, now just outside the film room. Caitlin felt tears sting her eyes, not from weakness, but from the terrifying realization that they hadn't stumbled onto a conspiracy. They had walked straight into its jaws. Stephanie cupped Caitlin's face for a moment, grounding her. "Listen to me. No matter what happens, you cannot admit anything. You cannot say we saw those files. You cannot acknowledge Phase 4. If they think we're a threat," she didn't finish. She didn't have to. Caitlin already knew. Threats get erased. Suddenly, the lights flickered, then shut off completely, plunging the room into darkness. Caitlin gasped. Stephanie yanked her down behind a row of chairs just as the main door clicked open. Flashlights cut through the dark, thin beams, sweeping the room slowly, methodically. A voice echoed, low and commanding. 2 individuals remain inside. Initiate containment. Containment. A word that didn't belong in sports. A word that belonged in operations, in intelligence, in cover-ups. Caitlin's blood ran cold. Whoever these people were, they weren't team staff. They weren't security. They were something else, something trained. Stephanie leaned close, whispering, "There's a vent behind the equipment panel. We can crawl into the maintenance tunnel." Caitlin nodded, fighting the trembling in her hands. They moved quietly, shadows in the darkness, hearts pounding as the beams of flashlights passed inches from their faces. Stephanie pushed the panel open, revealing a narrow metal shaft barely wide enough to crawl through. Caitlin slipped inside first, gripping the edges as the metal scraped her palms. Stephanie followed, pulling the panel shut behind them. Inside the tunnel, the air was stale, the heat suffocating, every breath echoing too loudly. Caitlin crawled forward, knees shaking, until her hand hit something small and plastic. A phone, not hers, not Stephanie's. Someone had placed it there intentionally, screen glowing faintly. A message was displayed across the screen in bold text. "You're in danger. Keep moving." Caitlin froze. Her breath hitched. Stephanie whispered behind her, "What is it?" Caitlin turned the phone so Stephanie could see. Stephanie's eyes widened in horror and recognition. "I know that number," she whispered. "It belongs to someone who hasn't spoken publicly in years." Before Caitlin could ask who, a second message appeared. "They're framing this as a breach of conduct. If they catch you, they'll blame you." Caitlin's pulse exploded. She kept crawling, heart slamming, until the tunnel opened into a maintenance closet. They pushed through the grate and collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. Caitlin's hand shook uncontrollably as she clutched the mysterious phone. "Who sent this?" she whispered. Stephanie swallowed hard, fear flickering across her face in a way Caitlin had never seen. She used to be part of the WNBA Integrity Division. Before she disappeared, Caitlin's breath caught. Disappeared. Why? Stephanie's voice cracked. Because she tried to expose the alliance. Before they could process that revelation, the phone buzzed again, this time with a live audio file. Caitlin pressed play, and a trembling voice whispered through static. "Caitlin, Stephanie, they're not after both of you. They're after Caitlin. Stephanie is leverage." Caitlin's heart clenched. Stephanie's face paled. A final message appeared. "Meet me at the original practice facility at midnight. Come alone. If Stephanie comes, they'll follow her. If you don't come at all, you won't get another chance to survive this." Caitlin stared at the message until her vision blurred. Stephanie grabbed her wrist. "Caitlin, you're not going. It's a trap." But Caitlin's voice came out hollow, broken, determined. "I don't have a choice. If I don't find out the truth tonight, the Alliance will destroy me by morning." Stephanie shook her head violently. "No, you are not walking into this alone." Caitlin met her eyes, fear and fire colliding inside her. "I have too. They don't want you. They want me, and running won't stop them." A loud bang echoed from the hallways, security reaching the maintenance area. Stephanie grabbed Caitlin's shoulders. Tears forming. "If you go, everything changes." Caitlin whispered, "It already has." The two slipped into the night. But Caitlin knew one thing. With terrifying clarity, midnight would decide everything. The truth. The lies, the Alliance, and whether she walked out of this alive. Lies, the Alliance, and whether she walked out of this alive.